Hey, how are you guys? So today I wanted to show you on one hand how to use the spreadsheet in case you haven't done it yet and in case it wasn't very clear on the spreadsheet itself. And on the other hand, I wanted to show you how to do some modifications so you can make the most use of your spreadsheet as possible. So first I wanted to show you the basic sweater that this spreadsheet will do for you. So the spreadsheet basically shows you how to do this boxy sweater over here, like this shape, a square, for both the front, which would be this one, and the back, which would be this one, you know. The front would be like the one with a higher neck, and the front with the lower neck, which is like the basic, like the most popular way of doing things. And on the other hand, for the sleeves, we have also square shapes, you know, there is no shaping on either sleeve or on the body, and the only shaping that we have is for the neckline. So that's the basic spreadsheet that we have at hand, and we are going to go right there right now. So here on the first tab we have the instructions. It tells you to the first thing you have to do is obviously swatch the stitch that you want to use. The spreadsheet contemplates using one stitch, so you have to swatch it at least on like 8 inches of stitches and rows to get like the most accurate measurements. And if it is not acrylic, if it's pure wool or, you know, any other kind of natural fiber or cotton or bamboo or, you know, those kinds of fibers that are not synthetic, even if they have a little bit of that, I recommend you to do the measurements both before blocking and after blocking. That's very important, because once you block the design, it very likely will change. It may not, but it might, and you will obviously wash your sweater once in a while, so it's better to do it then. So you're going to do your swatch, but before that, what I want you to do is to explore the spreadsheet. You know, that's the main thing. I want you to explore it. I want you to get familiar with it, because here on the calculations tab we have the swatch for one stitch. Let's say it's a stockinette stitch, and I have the calculations that I had for my swatch, right? So I had 30 stitches in 6 inches. I know I didn't follow my own advice, but with stockinette stitches it's a little bit easier. And here we have that we get 5. Here it's very basic. So you divide 30 into 6, and you get 5. And for the rows, I had 16 rows in 4 inches, so I get 4 rows per inch, you know. So yes, this was very thick yarn. This was like very bulky yarn, so that's why I get so small things. But my point is that here in this calculation tab, what you have is like the calculations that we have are for this swatch. Okay, so for example, if I change the chest circumference to, let's say, 36 instead of 34, this calculation will change, you know, to 100, right? Which is what is meant to happen here when you fill your sweater in inches. You know, that's what is going to happen. You're gonna get this measurement. So in stitches here, you're going to say, so let's say you measure 36 inches around the chest area. Okay, it's because we're missing the desired ease. So let's say the desired is 4 inches, and there you go, you get the 100 stitches. If this was, let's say, if you measured, I don't know, let's think, 36.5 inches around the chest, you'd get 101 stitches. So my recommendation is to approximate it to an even number of stitches. Just makes me happier. Even numbers, you know, it will make it easier along the way. So you would approximate it to 102, right? So that is one thing. But here we have 96 because I had 34 here, right? So let's say that 34, and you'll get the here here, for example, in this cell V15, we have that the color, no, here we have that we had an odd number of stitches, so we got 95. So I approximated to an even number, which was 96, because even numbers make things much more easier. And you know, depending on how bulky the yarn is or not, you will get a slight difference, but it's not really a big deal. So there you go. But these are the calculations that we will get if we are using this swatch for this stitch in particular. If we were to change the swatch, then if we were to change the swatch, if let's say we had, instead of 30, we had, I don't know, let's say 50 stitches in 6 inches, you know, you here the amount of stitches per inch would change to 8.33 stitches per inch, you know. And let's say here we have 45 rows in 4 inches, so we would get 11.25 rows per inch, and that will change every single calculation here on the example in inches column. So it won't be clear for you how exactly you have to do the, like, it will change all the example for you, so you won't be able to follow the instructions correctly because of this. So let's go back to the calculations that we had there. So I advise you two things. You can, like, just to get used to this just to get used to the spreadsheet, what you can do is follow the instructions of the spreadsheet with these swatch measurements, right? With the swatch that I have here for an example. So you just check your measurements and all that, and you write them down, and you approximate the stitches following like the row by row instructions. And once you have all those instructions, you have the round necklines, the round neckline instructions for you to fill them out. So here we are supposed to have already fill the neck measurements that you want for the for both the back and the front. And for in the example, we have these examples, right? So we need to bind off 40 stitches, and this is adding to the 2 stitches for the edges. And so we are going to do an initial bind off of 20 stitches, right? Because it's half of the stitches to make it like round and nice. And then here we approximate to an even number of stitches if the total number of stitches of the whole back or the whole front is uneven. And this is so you end up with an even number of stitches for each shoulder, to make it all nice and symmetric, you know, symmetric, I'm not sure, so sorry about that. Then it tells you how many stitches you have left to bind off per row, you know, either a right side row or a wrong side row, because you will only be able to decrease stitches on the neck side. of the shoulder. That means that if you're working on the left shoulder, you would, for example, only be able to work on the right side rows, and if you're working on the right shoulder, you will only be able to make the decreases on the wrong side row. So that's there to keep into account. So every couple of rows you have to decrease, not every and not every other row. I mean every other row and not every single row, because that's how it is. And then it tells you the rows left bind off stitches on each side, and then it tells you I mean, here what I did was sort of make like divide and see if you can do like an even division of stitches to make it. So here we were very lucky because we had 10 stitches left to bind off per side, so the right side or the left side, and here we have 5 rows to bind off. So that's perfect, because that means that we have to bind off 2 stitches per row, and that will finish up everything. So that's great. But here in the front neck we have a very different situation, and it's that we have 14 stitches left to bind off per row. And we have 9 rows left to why is this here? I'm not sure. Okay, but this is a very possible situation that can happen to you. I'm so sorry, I derailed there for a little bit. And is that if you have, for example, 14 stitches left to bind off at each side, right? And here we have 9 rows left. What I did here is again divide like 14 into 9, and how many stitches we have here? We don't have like a whole number of stitches. So what I did here was to distribute evenly, or as evenly as I could, let's say, the stitches left to bind off into the rows. So that's what this cell B73 is. As you can see, we have 9 numbers, so 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, that's 5, and 1, 1, 1, 1, that's 4, so that makes it a total of 9. And if you add all these numbers, that gives you 14, right? So we have 2 plus 2, 4, plus 2, 6, plus 2, 8, plus 2, 10, plus 1, 11, plus 1, 12, plus 1, 13, and plus 1, 14. And that gives us the total amount of stitches that we need to bind off per side into the 9 rows that we have to do the bind off, you know. You could also do something like more, like a little bit different in order to make it like the slope is a little bit less irregular, because this 2, 2, 2, 2 is going to make it very horizontal, and then the 1, 1, 1 is going to make it less horizontal, you know, because it's less stitches that we are decreasing. So you could maybe do 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That would make it like a more even, like a more diagonal, let's say, with a less with a greater degree, let's say, of in the thingy. So there is that. And then you, here in the instructions part, you get like all the information, like with the instructions themselves. So we usually start with the back, and you have the instructions for the back. So you have to cast on X number of stitches, and you go to your sweater, and it gives you the number of stitches. So you have to cast on 102 stitches. And since you are this sweater, you're working back and forth, so each side separately, each part separately, so the back separately, the front separately, and the 2 sleeves separately. So that means that you have to add 2 stitches on the edges so you can sew the sweater, and these will add them for you. So in total you have to cast on 104 stitches. It tells you for how many rows you have to work even in the pattern. Then it tells you in what row you will do the initial bind off, so we worked even for 84 rows on the example. That means that on row 85 you will do the initial bind off, and it tells you you have to work 38 stitches in pattern before the bind off. Then you're going to bind off an X amount of stitches, in the case of the example 20. Then it tells you how many more stitches you need to work until the end of the row, which is 38. So as you can tell here, we have the same amount of stitches that we will work after this, and it just keeps going like that. So it's very straightforward. It tells you all the instructions and for the sleeve and everything, and here for the finishing it gives you a few instructions that are very useful, I think. Now the other thing that I wanted to show you is how you can do some small modification on the spreadsheet so you can modify the sweater that you can make. So for example, with this sweater, with this spreadsheet, what you can do is, for example, to start with, you can also do like just a straight back, for example, like I'm showing you here. Just have the neck, the round neck here on the front. That's one option. And to do that, you just have to take off the depth of the neck. Just put that 0, and you won't have to make any calculations. You will just do a straight square, and then you can do just the neck for the front. Another choice that you can do is, for example, just do 2 squares here and also delete this, so you wouldn't need it, and you do 2 squares, and obviously you would leave, when you are sewing, you would just sew the shoulders, for example here. So here would be, it would roll, this part of the sweater would roll, but it will be like some sort of boat neck, and it would be very, very, I don't know, very modern, I think. So that's a good idea. I like that a lot. Other thing that you can do is we can go back here. And one thing that you can do is calculate exactly how many rows you would need for, let's say, a crew neck sweater. I would also, for a crew neck, I would also leave the back straight and just leave the front neck, and you could make it like a smaller hole or a bigger hole, just depends how big of a crew neck you want. I guess I would make it not very deep, probably like 2 inches, I think, and just big enough so my head would fit. And you can calculate, like if you want it like this, for example, or if you want a turtleneck sweater, you can you could calculate that on the spreadsheet, and I will show you in a little bit. So that's one choice. Another thing that you can, and you can do this in either the stitch pattern that you were working this, like in just use the stitch pattern that you were using, or we could use another stitch pattern. Usually you use a ribbing stitch, so 1 by 1 or 2 by 2 or 2 by 1, it depends on what you'd like, but that is definitely a choice, and you can I can show you how to do that, how to add a second stitch. And talking about a second stitch, that's also that's something that you can also do for the sleeves and for the bottom of your sweater. you know, to make it more, to give it more stability to the edges here and here, and I don't know, to give it like a more traditional look. Although just one stitch, I think it would work well. I don't really mind. I think it would look cute. Just one stitch all over. So that's one stitch that you might want to use, a rib stitch, you know. I like that. It's just like the usual way, and you can make it as I don't know, as exaggerated or as minimal as you want. Right now it's very fashionable to do, I don't know, like a third of a sweater, of the body of the sweater in a rib stitch, and you know, you usually match for the sleeves. It's something that it's like what people does, what designers do, but you can do something different. That's however you want. That's one of the fun things of becoming a designer, and it's that you can do whatever occurs to you, you know. It's like the possibilities are absolutely endless, so that's really, really, really cool. So there's that. You could add like a different you know, different stitches to the ends. So one idea is to do the ribbing, or you just can combine stitches, you know, and make stripes out of it. So for example, here we can have stockinette stitch, and then here we can have like some seed stitch, and then here again stockinette stitch, and then here again seed stitch, you know, and it would give you a fun, interesting texture. And you can do the same for the sleeves. And to do the calculations of how many rows to do of each stitch is very easy. I'll show you how to do it on the spreadsheet. So that's another thing that you can do. Use a few stitches, a few different stitches on your garment. And something else that you can do is simply, sorry, I'm just eliminating this so it's easier to show you. Another thing that you can do is simply just play with the length that you want for your sweater. Besides all these things, you know, like honestly, this spreadsheet is basic, but it's very, very juicy. Like you can do so many things. So for example, here it looks, this might be just like a sweater with usually 4 inches, and that would make it like slightly oversized, and that's based on the bust measurement, you know. But what you can do is also have no ease at all, so 0 of ease, and make it like straight to your bust, like the same measurement of as your bust, and that will obviously change the fit of the sweater, and that will be fun. You can make it longer. On the spreadsheet it specifically says about it specifically talks about center back, which is like this point, to hip, which would be this point. That's the length that we use, but you can use whatever length that you prefer. For example, like lower than the hips, like a tunic length, or you can use it like you can make a crop sweater and make it to the waist measurements. That is really just the length that you want. And also another cool thing that you can do is have like high and low style, so higher in the front and lower in the back. That's something that you can do. You can also just use like the back and front instructions, let's say, and make it cropped without sleeves, and that will give you a really cool summer top, you know, in lace, or oh my god, in lace would be awesome. Very simple, but you have the calculations right there, so that's cool. Or you can make like very short sleeves, you know, up until here and here. That's cool. That's very nice, isn't it? So I'll show you right now how you can do all of these things. So let's begin by adding a new stitch, right? We're going to go to calculations and we are going to duplicate this tab. I'm sorry, this is in Spanish, but you be in English, so you just put duplicate and it will duplicate and it will be weird. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay, that's better. That's great. Perfect. Now, here we have like the exact same things that we had in the other one. So that's why I advise you to make another copy for every, let's say, kind of sweater that you want to make, because you'll be changing a few things. So we have swatch 1 and we have these measurements. What we're going to do now is make a swatch 2. So let's say swatch 2, right? And let's make this ribbing 2 by 2, right? Or 2 by 2 rib, depends on what you want. Here we're going to do stitches and then rows here. Here, let's say we have 35 stitches in 6 inches. And here we have, let's do also, it doesn't change usually with the ribbing much, at least, let's say 17 in 4 inches. Great. So now here's where the magic happens. You are going to go to the stitches per rows, stitches and rows per inch, where it says inches. So in cell D3, you're going to copy it, and then you're going to go to the cell like D6, where you should get the results for our new swatch, and you're going to say paste, right? And this should pass the exact same formula that we did this. In this case, it's the stitches divided in the inches, right? And you're going to do the same here. Passed. It's pegar in español, but in Spanish, but you know the drill, it's passed. You're going to pass it and you'll get this amount of things, right? Great. So here you don't exactly need the example. That's good. So what you're going to do now is, for example, if you want to change if you want to know the amount of rows that you have to do for the neck, right? We are going to go here. I mean, we can do a few things. So in the back, we can do this in the back. We are going to insert a row, right? I think that's the word in English, I hope. So we're going to insert one row below. So you go and stand on the row number, not like on a cell, because it won't work. You just have to go to the numbers, and you insert one row below again. So what we're going to do is say, oh, actually no, I'm crazy. You have to go to the vertical measurements, okay? That will make it easier and more organized. So insert row below, and let's insert another one below. Great. So we're going to say neck length, right? Then in rows, and then in the row below we're going to say approximate rows, just because I'm a sucker for even numbers. So on your side here in your sweater in inches, what you're going to do is go to place like the equal sign. Oh no, sorry, not here. Here you're going to insert the measurement in English that you want. So let's say you want a crew neck a crew neck. So it's usually 1.5 inches. So 1,5. If you're in the US, you probably use a dot, not a comma, but this is how it works in Colombia, or in Spanish more exactly. That's how spreadsheet works. So there's that. But again, if you're using it in the US, you'll probably have like a dot, not a comma. There you go. And so to do the rows, what you're going to do is you're going to stand in the cell C35, presumably, and you're going to insert the equal sign. You're going to select the neck length sign cell, and you are going to multiply it. So you use the asterisk, and you're going to multiply it by this new measurement, which is for the swatch 2 and the rib 2x2, the rows per inch. So the cell would be D7. You're going to stand there. You're going to say yes to the dress. You're going to enter or whatever, and you'll have your measurement. And we are going to make it an approximate. So I usually like to make it even to finish on the wrong side and then bind off in the right side. So we can do 6. I think 6 would be good. So we rounded down. We rounded the number down to an even amount of rows. And you can make this into a special color so you don't forget. So you go to, that thing that looks like a bucket. And let's put it this color. Let's see. I'll show you this color. This is, I think, the color that I chose. Yay. So one thing is that you won't get these instructions on the instructions that I put here, the finishing instructions. But now you know that that is the amount of rows that you have to work, right? If you want to do a crew neck. So you have to work 6 rows. That's awesome. That's on one hand, and on the other hand, if for example you want to do a turtleneck, so that would be, for example, a total, at least I would think probably 4 or 5 inches. So let's go with 5 inches. You change the neck length for 5, or let's say 6. Just make it exaggerate. I love that. I love like a good thick long neck length for a turtleneck. So we get a change in the number. We get 25.5. So we would change that to 26, right? Because we love even numbers. And we get the 25 rows that we get to change, that we have to work in order to have a 6 inch turtleneck. So there's that. Awesome. Now, let's say you, as I was telling you before, let's say you don't want a neck depth. So here in the back, at least, that's usually the case, that the back, you don't really need to shape it for the neck unless you want to. If you want to be like very exact, that no shaping works, okay? So that would be, you would put 0, this would make no calculations, and that would work. Awesome. What else can we do here? Right, we can also, you're talking about changing the length of the body itself. So what we do here is we can just say length. No, wait, this is not, it would be here, center back to hip length. So we can just change this to, let's say, general or regular, or just, let's call it length of the body, right? And if it was for me, it wouldn't be, let's say I wanted cropped. I love cropped sweaters. I mean, they're so cool, like shorter. I think they elongate the legs and just makes a little bit of a cooler proportion in my case. So 24 inches would be to the hip. I would like to crop it like to the high hip area. That would be, let's say, 21 inches, right? In rows, that is not here. Why? Почему? But that's easy. If that is not the case, if you don't have that measurement there, what we need to do is we're going to put the equal sign and we are going to select the length that we want. I mean, for the swatch one, right? That's our total length. And we are going to put rows cell multiplied by cell C24, which is the one that we like. And we have 84 rows, right? So we put that number there because we want them to be in the instructions. Now, if you want to have like the ribbing, as I was telling you about before, what we can do is we're going to oh shit, what did I do? So sorry. We are going to insert one thing above, and let's do another one above, another row above, right? Length, oh, I put length of the body, should be awesome. And let's say here what we are going to do, okay, wait, one last row to just make things better. So this is the total length of the body, right? Now I want, sorry about that. Now I want, let's say, sorry about that. I want, let's say, 2 inches of ribbing. So let's say ribbing here, right? And I want 2 inches. Awesome. In rows, it gives me, so we go to the cell, we go equal, we select the amount of ribbing that we want, multiplied with the asterisk by the amount of rows of the ribbing swatch per inch, and we get 8.5, so let's go with 8. Awesome. But here we have something funny, and what we have here is that this is the length of the body in total, right? And even though we have the 84, that's cool, we know that now, but the measurements may vary, you know. You could do something really simple, like just subtract like 8, which would be the rows in the ribbing. So just work, we would, let's do that down. So we would subtract, right? So equal, and would be 84 minus this cell. That would give us 76 rows, right? That works if, for example, the measurements, like the row swatch for both stitches is similar. So here, let's say it's 425 and here is 4. So it is similar, so you could just do this, right? So 76 would be the rounded number. But you can also do something way much more exact in case the row gauge, that's the name I was looking for, in case of the the row gauge is different. And what we're going to do is we are going to subtract the 2 inches of the ribbing out of the total length of the body, right? So equal, and then length of the body minus the length of the ribbing, which would be 2 inches, and we get 19, right? 19 inches. And what we're going to do now is go to the row below, and we're going to multiply that, the 19 inches that we have left, we're going to multiply it by the gauge of stitches of our regular stitch. Let's say it's a stockinette, so it would be 5. Huh, that's weird. What did I do here? D4. Rows. Right. That was my mistake. Remember, be careful with this. So I multiply it by the gauge of stitches and not the gauge of rows. Now I have the gauge of rows. And voila, we have also the 76 rows. So make sure to highlight this, because again, this won't be on the instructions. On the instructions below. So keep that in mind. But for example, if this was any other stitch, if the row gauge was very different, let's say, I don't know, let's say this is not 17 but 20, right? This would definitely change, because look, here it changes, so it would be, I guess not that much, you know, it's not that big of a deal. This is when the stitches are very dramatic. Although here, look, here you would get 74 rows, but here you get 76. So what you should do, like ideally in this case, is you work 75 stitches, so 75 rows on your regular sorry, on your regular stitch, and then you work 10 rows on the ribbing stitch, right? That would be like the ideal situation. But if you're a little bit lazy, you can just subtract it. If it's not that much of a difference between the gauges of the 2 stitches, you can totally do this, and that works perfectly. Now, if you want to do like something like color blocking or something like that, and you know, remember, you can do this for the sleeves too. So you just add rows to the spreadsheet, and you do the calculations by hand. You know, you multiply the measurement that you want. If it's horizontal, you multiply it by stitches, you know, by the gauge, you know, stitches per inch and rows per inch, right? And if you want a vertical measurement, if you have a vertical measurement, you multiply it by rows. Again, beware, this might not come out in the instructions here in this area, but I guess you can figure it out and it will work out perfectly. So if, for example, you want to figure out how to do color blocking, which is very fun to do, by rows, let's say, you want to figure out how many rows, I mean, you want to do stripes, right, in the same stitch. You would need to figure out how big the strips you want them to be, you know, and you would multiply that measurement by the row gauge, so row per stitch calculation, and that would give you the amount of rows that you need to work for each stripe. If they are different measurements, then you do that. And I think that's pretty much it, all I wanted to show you. I hope this worked out. You know, I'm going to I don't know, yeah, I think I won't send you this one because it's very basic and I didn't add that much information, but I mean, you can watch this video as many times as you want, and also on the spreadsheet that I the link that I sent you before, I made a few mistakes because I speak Spanish and English, and there were a few words that were actually in Spanish. I'm so sorry about that. Now, thanks to a great just a customer, a client, like one of you guys who noticed it, and she also speaks Spanish and English, so she made me realize it. So thank you so much, Katie, for that. And now it has the right terms in English. So there's that. Now it's updated. So let me know if you want me to send you this copy with this new swatch thing with the second swatch of stitches. You can totally do that. I hope you make the most out of this spreadsheet. Is really cool, like really easy to do the measurements that you want for whomever you want them to be. And be on the lookout for an email coming to you in case you want to explore much more shapes, different kinds of constructions, and you're not an Excel expert, but as you can see, this is very easy. You just need to know like how to do it, and then it suddenly clicks. So be aware of that. I should be sending it next week at the beginning. So just how we can work much more and go much deeper into knitwear design. So thank you so much for watching this. I know this was a long video. Thank you for sticking with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.